You're listening to Fathers Handling Business, where fatherhood meets real talk and real solutions. Here are your hosts, Donté Witherspoon and Dwyan Marsh, ready to dive deep into the art and science of parenting. Let's get started and empower the dad in you.
Welcome. What is going up? Welcome to another episode of Fathers Handling Business. I am your host, Dwyan Marsh, along with my co-host here,
Donté Witherspoon.
What's up with you, brother? How you feeling, bro?
Feeling good.
Feeling great. We are live on YouTube today. Also going to be on Fluent Radio Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Central Time, 5 to 6. Shout out to all of our Fluent Radio affiliates, Chicago
What's
people.
What's going on, Chicago?
What's going on? All my family's up there, so they're probably not listening, but it's all good. They've been listening to me my whole life, so it's all good. So today we're going to talk about how to avoid failing as a father. We're both divorced fathers, and so having some of those feelings of guilt and having some of those feelings of, man, did I do my best as a father? Definitely creep up. I think we were talking, for me, it's a little bit different because I never met my father. I don't know what my actual father looks like. I just know his name. So for me, my whole goal was to be known to my kids. Right. So for me, that's a win. Right. For me, but that's a very selfish way of looking at it. I was trying to make sure that I was around so my kids could use me, bounce ideas off of me for advice or, anything that they needed. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm there to help out. Right. I'm there to be your advisor or whatever, as a father, something which I didn't really have. But that's also has nothing to do with how my kids see that,
how they see you,
how they see me, and right?
Okay.
So we can just start off like, what are some of the biggest fears you faced in your journey as a father?
Oh, well, I could go all the way back to like learning when my ex-wife was pregnant, and just like I had like crazy anxiety because I was like, man, I'm about to be a dad. And then I was like experiencing all these feelings and emotions of like, okay, I have to be this type of dad. I got to make sure I do this, that, and the third. So I was like, really like, I was in my head a lot.
Okay.
And at the time, actually, I was doing social work, right? So I was doing some social work, and I was seeing all these, different situations, scenarios, and environments kids were in. I'm like, my heart was breaking for these kids. And I was like, I have to make sure that I am the best father that I could, possibly ever be, so that my kids will never have to experience, some of the things that the other kids are going through. And so, it just made me, really think about what type of father I wanted to be. And I didn't want to fail.
Okay. So why was failing such a big thing for you?
I don't know. I think growing up in a broken home had a lot to do with it. I know that growing up in a broken home was one of the reasons why I wanted to be a therapist since the 8th grade.
Okay.
And so I just didn't want my kids to grow up in a broken home. And here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Got you. So can you share a moment where you felt like you failed as a father?
Yeah. There's a lot, I mean, I think the biggest one would be, having a failed marriage, and then my kids not, having both parents in the same home, them having to go back and forth from their moms to our house. And I say our house because I'm now with someone, and so kind of like, and we'll talk more about that too. But yeah, just not, not having them grow up in a home where they have both,
Both parents.
both parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would say like that's one of the biggest failures from my perspective, where I see. So, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff where like there's things that I've done as a father where like I'm like, oh, I probably could have handled that differently. You know what I mean? Things how I was raised. Like I was raised, I think we talked about this before, but like I was disciplined, but it was another form of discipline. And so I made sure that I wasn't going to discipline my kids in that same way, but I still feel a little bit short in that regard too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, in your professional opinion, right? Your professional opinion, you dealt with lots of fathers, right?
Oh yeah.
Over the course of your career and seen different parenting styles. And we even talked about some parenting styles. But in your professional opinion, sir, what are the key attributes of a successful father?
I mean, I feel like that's gonna look different from time to time. It's gonna look different depending on who you ask. So, I mean, you could ask your kids, and they're gonna have a different point of view than what you may anticipate being as a father as well. So, I would say, from my perspective, my own personal and professional perspective, one being present, and not just being there, but like being present emotionally, mentally, and physically for your kids.
Okay. In my opinion of that is a little bit different, just because just biblically speaking, in Exodus 25 it says you should not bow down or worship them, and he's talking about other gods. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of their parents to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. Right. So in my opinion, a successful father is one that is all the things you said, but also is a godly man,
spiritual, yeah,
right, and somebody who introduces and not only introduces their kids to God, but shows them how to live a godly life, right?
Training them up,
training them up, right? Giving them an example. And so it is tough when you do have the divorce on your resume, and then your kids see you every day. They see you in your good times, they see you in your bad times, they see how you react to certain situations,
right?
So just being an everyday example, and they're gonna see when you're frustrated, they're gonna see when you're mad, upset, etc., and like I've always said, a lot of things that we don't feel are significant to us, maybe our kids may take that in, and that's something that they hold on to for most of their life. It's very weird like that, like stuff that we feel is insignificant is very significant to our kids, depending on where they are in their development,
right?
Depending on where they are in their development.
But you just said something. You said they're going to see us in our everyday life,
right?
So and I think that like that's one of the things where I feel like guilt and shame, because they did at one point see me every day,
right?
And now they don't,
right?
And so
so since your divorce, what steps have you taken to rebuild that trust and strengthen your relationship with your kids?
I would say trying to be as consistent as possible.
Okay.
And I'll I add to that, consistent in regard to, like I mentioned before, being present, even when it's not my day with them. So like, let's say my son or daughter, they have an event, like my daughter dances. So if she has a dance competition, it's not my week or weekend or whatever. I'm making sure I show up. Mm-hmm. Or if my son has a baseball game or a football game, I want to be there, as long as I can. So like yesterday I couldn't. I was working. My son had a football game. It was right after school, and I couldn't be there. But and I think he understands that.
Yeah, of course.
They don't expect us, to be there every single time. But if I say that I'm going to be there,
right,
then I got to make sure I show up.
Right. And I mean, that's also a good example that you are setting. Like, you can't be at every play event because you're out here working.
Yeah.
Right. And providing for your family. So that's also a good example that sometimes people overlook. Like, the kid may not be happy or and I know you go to a lot of your kids' stuff and you take them somewhere. So when he sees that, dad gotta work, it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
But he also sees like, oh, dad is actually working. Like, this is actually something that he must do to go get bread and provide for the family. So he knows that it's just not money trees growing,
right?
You know what I'm saying? That's also a good example. But I think staying true to your word is key. If you say you're gonna do something or you're gonna be somewhere,
right,
and you don't show up, then the trust starts to be broken down. And they remember those things.
1,000%.
They remember those things. So yeah, kudos on you for making sure that you are being true to your word. So as you're doing those things, like how has those actions, what do you feel like those actions have done to their development? Like, how are they reacting to your steps that you're taking?
I don't know. I think they're receptive.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're receptive to the things that I do, like my consistency. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. I feel like it's a sense of safety, mm-hmm. if you will. Mm-hmm. If dad says he's going to, pick me up from school, then they can expect that I'm going to pick them up from school and not leave them there. Or that they say, if he says, hey, I'm going to come to you, your dance competition, like my daughter expects to see me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially my daughter. My daughter does not forget anything. If you say, I noticed that about her, if you say that you're going to do something, mm-hmm. you better do it, because if you don't, she will hang that over your head forever. Like forever.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be a man of your word. And I mean, especially for a daughter, they have to be able to see that, because at some point they're going to have to trust the man.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And so if they don't feel like men are trustworthy, then that just delays
starts with their dad, right?
Right. And it starts with their dad, so if you prove yourself trustworthy and she feels like, okay, there is a man that I can trust, then it's easier for them to, trust in a man when it comes to that time,
right.
In their life, So what I'm hearing is prioritizing communication as far as avoiding the common pitfalls of fatherhood. Communication is key in any relationship. Like
1,000%.
It doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. Like, communication is always number one. And I know Meyer Golden always says this. He said, the biggest mistake that we have in communication is thinking that it happened. So basically what he's saying is, a lot of times we say stuff and we talk at them, but they don't receive it.
Right.
you know what I'm saying, they basically leave us on red, you know what I'm saying, in real life, you know, and we thought that we told them to take out the trash or do whatever we told them to do, but they didn't hear it, they didn't receive it, right? And so you know, making sure that we prioritize the communication and not only just talking at them, but making sure that they understood, you know, and they received the message.
And I think that's the key too, is the understanding part. At
Right.
least communicating in a way where they understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if they not receiving the message, then did you really even talk?
Right.
You know, like you're just talking to your blue in the face and you talking to the wall. It feels like sometimes, you know, when you have to say things over and over and over again, and you know, as a parent, you have to say things over and over again until they get it. But also, you know, saying the same thing over and over again in the same manner, and they're not getting it, like that's not helping anybody.
You gotta switch it up.
Yeah, like you can try to explain trigonometry to me all you want to, but if I don't understand the concept, if I don't understand X times Y equals Z, you know, like I don't even know if that's a real thing. I'm pretty sure it's not. But you know, if you know, X to the square equals Y to the.
All right, now it's getting worse. Stop.
Yeah, you feel what I'm saying? Like you don't understand that, and so you could tell me that all you want. You can give me that formula all you want to, but if I'm not receiving it and I don't understand it, then there's a breakdown in the communication. So, you know, avoiding those common things that we all do as parents sometimes, because we know what we're talking about, right? But they don't know what we're talking about,
right?
You know, so one of the things that I've always done is make sure that they can say it back to me in their words, right? If I ask you to do something, or if I can give you some tasks, okay, now what did I say? What was your understanding of what I said, right? And then they'll either repeat it back to me, or a lot of times out here, wait, can you say that again? Because then I know that they weren't really listening, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, if you ask me to say it again, that means that you just tuned me out, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. So let's do that again. Yeah. Let's have this communication again, right? And so we prioritize that. So, you know, make it a point to regularly engage in meaningful conversations with your children, listening actively to their concerns and expressing your own thoughts and feelings. You know, listening to them is key as well.
That is
right. Instead of just talking at them, listening.
That's a part of being present in their life as well.
Right.
So like, if they feel like they don't have a parent to talk to about whatever they're going through, especially like, I mean, you know, like your kids went through middle school, high school. And so you've already seen those different stages of life for them.
Right.
And what that looked like middle school is like really the craziest part. Right. It's where they're trying to figure out who they are.
Right.
And if they don't have a parent in which they could communicate to, talk to about like some, whatever they're feeling.
Right.
And it's like, who are they going to go to?
Right. This is true. So the second thing that we have to avoid the common pitfalls in fatherhood is set realistic expectations. So understand that we're not perfect as fathers, and neither are our children.
Right.
So setting some realistic expectations for both ourselves and our kids can really prevent feelings of failure and frustration. So realistic goals are key.
Yeah.
Even when we were talking about in the sports context, right? So, you know, my son wanted to be a basketball player, right? And so trying to set real goals for him, like, okay, like you're not going to get to the NBA tomorrow.
Right.
Right. But what you can do is you can practice today, right? And then practice tomorrow. And then practice the next.
You got to break it down.
Right. And just breaking it down to them and understanding once I showed them like, okay, there's the D1, there's D2, D3, there's JUCO, there's all these other leagues in between, pro-am leagues. Like, you got to get through all that and shine before you can even think about sniffing the league. You know?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times the hard work aspect is skipped, you know? And I don't want to generalize and just be like, oh, it's just this generation. I think it's just the way that we are now with our highlight reel, aka social media. You know, everybody can see our highlight reel and nobody sees like
the failures.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't get on there and show the failures. Well, I guess I do, but everybody doesn't get on there and show the failures of, you know, the things that they're doing. And so it's easy to just look and be like, I want that. I can do that.
Right.
And you can, but it's some steps that you have to take.
Yeah. I mean, and as we talk about realistic expectations and goals, right? I think that's something that our kids, we need to share with our kids that have a better understanding of, because they have social media, like you said.
Right.
All they see is highlight reels. They're going through this whole thing of, well, like you said, this is what I want to do that, or I want to be this. And all they're seeing is the successful part of that, but they're not seeing all the different steps that it took for whoever they're watching on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. They didn't see, you know, the development of where they got to, right? So it's like, how do we as fathers help our kids have an understanding of these are the necessary steps that it takes to get to where you say you want to be?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, set realistic expectations, set small goals.
Small, attainable goals. Yep.
Small, attainable goals that can build upon the next one.
Yeah.
Right?
And then also, like, letting them know that if you fall short of a goal that you set, like, it's okay. It doesn't mean that you are a failure. A part of success is failing along the way. Because when you do that, you get to learn from that failure. You get to learn from that mistake, right?
Right.
You fall, you get back up, you learn, all right, I failed because I did this. So now that I'm back up, I know not to do that.
Right.
And I'm going to take a different approach. And then you begin to move up. Yeah. It's a part of life.
Yeah, it is a part of life. Adam failed. He failed the test. David failed. David. He failed. He failed the test, but he also was a man after God's own heart, and he was able to reconcile the failure. You know, he got Solomon. You know, he had some other kids that were. Man, they were doing some stuff, raping their sisters and all kind of stuff. But you know, he still had Solomon.
He's talking about Adam, like Adam and Eve. Adam.
Yes. And David.
David and Goliath. David.
That guy. Yeah. He was dope, but he was also he also did some things which we've all done. So the third thing that we have is maintaining consistency. Consistency is so key to humans and our development, right? Like, we're just creatures of habit.
Right.
We just really are. But we all know that by the time they are toddlers, they know who they can go to for certain things, right? And so maintaining consistency in rules and discipline and love is crucial, right?
Right.
Because they know that, you know, if they fall and start crying, they know which parent is going to be like, oh, and they know the parent who's just going to look at them like,
get up,
go ahead and get up, bro.
Yeah.
Like, like they know that.
It's usually the dad, not always.
Yeah. I didn't say no parent names.
Yes,
you did.
I did.
I just said they know which parent. You feel me?
Yeah.
Just you can fill in the blank wherever you would like. But it really helps to create a stable environment for the children. Reduces confusion when they know that you're always going to react a certain way, and the other parent is going to react a certain way. Like they're not confused. They know what it is, and they build their trust. Because and they build the trust in you and in your judgment.
Right.
So just remaining consistent with your rules, with what you allow to happen, right, is super crucial. What you got to say on that?
I would like to, just more questions about consistency as a father too, as they get older. So like we're talking about infant stage right now, and as they get older, like how else can we be consistent in their lives? And I know that we talked about being present, mentally, emotionally, and physically, but then you also brought up being present spiritually. So like as men, being the spiritual leaders of our household, being consistent in that, because if they see inconsistencies in that, they're going to pick up on that.
100%.
Right. Being emotionally available for them on a consistent basis, emotionally and mentally, and then being physically present, not just like, or I guess like the emotional and mental part is like not just you being physically there, but being readily available to, answer any questions, sit down and have a conversation with them. If they're going through something, maybe they want to tell you something that happened at school. And if you're, a type of parent that's too busy with work, you get your head in the computer or your head in the TV and you're watching sports and not listening to what they have to say, they may not feel like they can come to you with whatever they have going on in their lives. And we have to be readily, available at all facets of life for them.
Yeah.
Being consistent in that way.
Yeah. Being consistent. Maintaining consistency. That's the number 3 thing. So the number 4 actionable step to avoid common pitfalls in fatherhood is educating yourself. This one is it's a inner thing, right? Sometimes it's an ego thing, sometimes it's a pride thing. That father knows best, right? But our world is constantly, there's nothing new under the sun, but there's new stuff for us, right? Our world is constantly evolving, changing. We didn't have social media as it is currently now,
right,
when we were growing up, right? We just had the grapevine. I heard it through the grapevine, right? Like that's not a thing anymore. You don't hear it through the grapevine. Right. You just turn on your device and you can hear anything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, you instantly
know everything, right? And so, but knowing is not really knowledge and wisdom, right? So educating yourself is key, because you really want to seek out sources and advice on parenting, attending workshops, reading books, joining parenting groups, joining, men's groups. Like, we're part of a men's group, and just bouncing ideas and talking to other men who are going through the same situation, just that community,
older men too, who have already been through,
100%.
They have more experience than you have, and so that's important too. So like I can come to you because your kids are older than my kids. I can come to you and ask you questions about certain things that your kids may have experienced that my kids are not at that stage yet.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely going and talking with other people who have older kids than you have as well. Yeah. Further along the line.
Yeah, just seeking that knowledge, seeking that wisdom, talking to, like you said, older men, talking to men who have kids that have gone through, because really we all go through the same situations with our kids, you know, at different stages in their lives. Like you said, I had my kids early, so, you know, I went through a whole bunch of stuff with my kids that now some of my friends, they're going through the same exact thing. Like at the same exact age. Like I can pinpoint, like, oh, I know what they're going through. I know what they're feeling. Don't worry about it. They're just doing this. Like they're not doing anything out of the ordinary.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're doing, like my son did the exact same thing. You know what I'm saying? So I got 3 boys. So when people say stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, one of my sons did that. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, I remember when they was acting like this, or, you know, so just educating yourself and seeking out advice from different sources, it'll just give you a more well-rounded perspective of what's going on at the time, right? Because as a parent at the time when you're in it, you feel frustrated,
right?
You know, and you definitely don't want to take that frustration out on your kids, out on your children. So just being able to step outside of yourself and be a continual learner, you know,
right?
And that's just life advice. Like, don't ever stop learning. Don't ever feel like, you know it all, because you don't. You know, like I don't know it all as far as, you know, even parenting kids in their 20s. You know what I'm saying? Like I still gotta, you know, reach out and talk to different people and educate myself as well. But it's just a continuing learning experience.
Yeah, and even though your kids, like, even though you have adult kids, like, they're still your kids.
Yeah.
And you're still going to parent them.
Yeah, 100%.
I know that. I mean, I still look to my dad for advice for certain things. So he's still a parent. I'm in my 40s, and so he's still being a dad, and that's gonna be us.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. One of my sons is working in a restaurant, and so where they serve alcohol, and he's been very adamant about not touching alcohol, not tasting it, not anything, you know, just since he gave his life to Christ. Like he's just like, nah, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not, you know, because he's seen his friends drunk, he's seen the evidence of being drunk and all this other kind of stuff. But you know, we had to have a conversation like, look, bro, Jesus drank wine. It's okay. It's not okay to be drunk, right? It's a difference between being drunk and, you know, having a glass of wine.
Right.
I'm just like, you know, so I showed him some Bible verses, and, you know, so he's hindering himself from moving up in his job because they're like, yo, we want you to be able to serve wine, but you also have to be able to know what it tastes like.
Oh, he doesn't even want to serve the wine to people.
He wants to serve the wine, but that was his struggle too. Like he was like, oh, am I causing them to sin by serving them wine? Like he's like, that was his whole thing. Like he was like, yo, like he was having a real internal struggle.
So you told him about wait, did you tell him about Jesus' first miracle?
He knows about Jesus' first miracle. You know, right. Yeah, he knows about Jesus' first miracle. But to him, at least in that verse, it didn't say that Jesus drank the wine. It said that he turned
he kept the party going.
Yeah, he kept the party going.
Go ahead and keep the party going.
But, you know, I showed him the verse where Jesus did say that he drank.
Okay.
You know, you know, you party when it's time to party, and you work when it's time to work. But, you know, and I was telling him, like, it's okay. Like, you can taste the wine. You know, you don't have to start being a drinker. Right. You know, but you do have to do your job. You know, and you got to be able to, you know, tell him. Even his pastor that mentors him was telling him kind of the same thing. But, you know, like, that's a very different conversation than when he was 12, 13, 14. And right. I'm like, you don't need to be going to parties and getting drunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to be drinking. You know what I'm saying? That's a very different conversation at 22 than it was at 12 and 13 and 14. Right. But I even had to educate myself on, because he was really struggling with this, and I didn't necessarily know what to say to him at first, because I saw what he was trying to say. Like, I'm trying to stay holy. I'm trying to be set apart. Like, I don't want to be drinking. I don't want to be associated with that.
Right.
But I also told him, like, yo, man, like, you have 100 miles an hour on your dash on your car, but it doesn't mean that you drive at 100 miles an hour. That's using wisdom, right? So just because there's drinks in front of you, like, you can have a drink, you can sip, you can taste it, but that doesn't mean that you have to go and get drunk.
Right.
Like, you have to use wisdom. And so, just constantly educating yourself, because they're going to have different issues. Like I said, teenagers versus, in their job and, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, continuously educate yourself, continuously seek out new resources and new ways of, parenting your kids, because like I said, there's nothing new under the sun, but it is new for us.
Right.
And so somebody else has gone through it. And so seek it out, and seek and you shall find, really.
Somebody, like you said, somebody else is going through it as well. And it's nice to know that someone else out there may have the answer for you. So, yeah.
Not may, but they will.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, nothing new under the sun. God has been here, since forever. So there's somebody who has gone through the same issues that we're going through.
Let's stop.
Nah, I didn't stop. My bad, live. I was trying to make sure we flow. We flow and focus. All right, and the last actionable step that we have here is take time for self-reflection. So regularly assess your parenting style and its impact on your children. Acknowledge the areas where you can improve, and just be honest with yourself. Take some steps to make those changes, which might involve more family time, altering discipline methods if they're not working, right? Communication, or simply just showing more affection. Those are really looking inward and seeing how what you're doing is affecting your kids. That's why I was asking you earlier, like, how do you feel, the things that you're doing now are affecting your kids?
Right.
Are you seeing any changes in them? Like, I know you recently moved, so how's that going with your kids? Are they adjusting to the new situation?
Yeah, they adjusted pretty well. It's just moving always sucks. So one of the biggest things was making sure their rooms were all squared away first thing, and then the rest of the house followed after that. So.
Right. Yeah, man, the rest of the house is so looking back, what would you give to other fathers who feel like they failed?
I mean, a part of the self-reflection that you just mentioned is huge, right? So definitely want to take a look in the mirror and almost like I would even say journal, like write down, like, all right, what have I done? And I would do it like a few times a year. Like, what have I done this quarter where I feel like I made an impact in my kids' lives? How have I failed? And then did I make any changes to make sure that I rectified that failure, if you will? And how have I succeeded, and how can I build upon that? So almost like taking a look in the mirror at yourself.
Journaling, that's good. That's
good.
Definitely
journal, because you want to be able to like really and truly like sit down and think and write about like the impact that you've had in your kid's life, or the lack of impact that you had in your kid's life. Either way, it's like there's an impact. And so is it something that you want to leave your kids with, like, what type of legacy are you leaving for your kids? Is it something that you want them to pass along to their kids if they ever have kids? So things like that. One of the things that my dad passed along to me, and I would say, like, he left this legacy. It's crazy. I was just talking with a bunch of people yesterday about it. Was this book that he made me read on the way to high school. I went to high school. We had a long drive, like 17 miles away, long story. But I was in the car to the point where I could read, like a chapter in a book on the way to school. And so within that book, I did that from sophomore year of high school to my senior year of high school.
The same book?
Same book. It was either that or the Bible. We go back and forth.
Yeah.
But, fast forward, that book was then created. They created like these little cards. And those cards had little excerpts from that same book that I read as a high schooler. And now my kids are reading the card portion of that book. And so, like, my dad introduced me to that book, and it really helped, shape and mold my life and my perspective of certain things. And now I'm doing the same thing for my kids. And it's cool to see. Like, my son had an incident this past weekend, and I explained to him, like, hey, this is why I share, this book with you and your sister, because things like this are going to happen in life. And so I want you to be able to have the right tools to use when these certain things happen. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So what constitutes failure in your eyes? Is that a personal thing? Is it do we feel like we fail? Is it a failure when the kids say that you fail? Like, what constitutes failure?
Well, I think it's a both, and I think it's a personal, I think it's a societal, and I think it's like, I could maybe speak for most of us. It will hit us hard if our kids say something to us that really hurt them, that something that we did or didn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I think that as parents, as fathers, like, we take that to heart, and we want to make sure that we can improve on that. And so I would say, from a personal standpoint, like, if we do fail, or what constitutes as failure is doing something wrong and not rectifying it, or not doing something and not rectifying it. Pretty much, falling short and not getting back up.
So falling short of a goal that we set. That's a question.
Yeah.
Falling short of a goal that we set.
Yeah, I think so. Falling short of just parenting, you know what I mean? Like, parenting in a way where we feel like, well, this is the type of parent that I want to be.
Now, have you ever written down the type of parent that you want to be?
That's a good question. I don't know if I can't say that I've written it down, but I've definitely
write it down.
Definitely had a mental note of the type of parent that I want to be.
Because you don't know if you failed unless you actually set out to do something. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, in the Bible, it says, when you write it down, it is established. So, and that's why people have vision boards and all that kind of stuff. Right. So the same thing goes for parenting, especially as a father, being able to write down what type of father you want to be, what you want to accomplish. And obviously you can't you can't determine the outcome, but you can determine the inputs, right? You can't determine the outputs, but you can determine the inputs. Yeah. And you can do everything that you set out to do, and the outcome is what the outcome is, right? Yeah. God's gonna take care of that. But being able to really have a clear vision of what you want to be as a father. Like, do you want to be a praying father? Do you want to be a disciplinarian father? Do you want to be, a father that, has weekly meetings, you know what I'm saying, with their kids, just writing those things down. And as you said, journaling, maybe putting it in your journal. You don't have to announce it to the world, but if you write it down, put it in your journal, like these are for 2025, which is coming up, I want to be doing these 3 things with my kids on a weekly basis. Right. Something simple like that. Right. For the next 6 months, I'm going to, read the Bible with them at least once a week. We're going to have a monthly meeting, to talk about their day or their feelings. And we're going to have an activity. We're going to do something.
Right.
Right. So that way you can really see if you did fail, because sometimes we feel like we failed, right? Like we get convicted, but our kids don't see it as a failure. They may not see it at all, or they may not see it as a failure. They're just like, oh, okay, that's cool, or that didn't happen or whatever. But, they don't see it as what we see it as. Sometimes it's the enemy telling us that we failed. Right. Yeah.
I think like for our kids, it's good that you brought that up, because I think, because you asked, is it a personal, is it what our kids think of us? And the only way we will know if we failed our kids is if we ask them.
100%.
Right. So if you want to know what type of father that your kids are looking for, then ask them. Ask them what their expectations are that they have for you as a father. And then you will know. And then you will also have a better idea of what they need, because each kid, if you have multiple kids, they're gonna have different needs. They definitely have different love languages, and so
different experiences.
Yes, you gotta understand.
You had them at
kids.
Different points in your life.
Yeah, different personality. Everything. So your kids are going to need something different from you as a father. So learning what those are, it's key. It's huge. So have the conversation with them. It's a weird conversation to have, so don't try not to make it weird, I guess. But it's like, hey, like, as your dad, I just kind of want to know like what you need, from me, like as your dad, like, what do you expect from me? And
they may not know right off, because that's not infants, a question. Not infants, but I'm just saying, they may not know right off because they've never thought about it.
Yeah. Right? Oh yeah, for sure.
Right. They've never thought about that. And, obviously not going to ask an infant that, but, once they get past 10 years old, even 7, maybe sometimes.
Well, you could ask a 5-year-old, like, hey,
you could ask a 5-year-old.
Absolutely.
But once they get past 10, they have a decade on life, so they have a little bit more perspective. But yeah, ask them what they want. And the earlier you ask them, then they'll start thinking about it. Yeah. So, right, as you're asking a 5-year-old, it may be something like, yo, I need more candy from you. Something silly like that.
That's exactly what it will be.
Yeah. But if you ask them at 6, and then you ask them at 7, and then you ask them at 8, at 9, at 10, when it comes to 12, 13, when they're really going through the tough part of teenage years, and transitioning from a preteen to a teen, and like you said, middle school years, and dealing with hormones and all that kind of stuff, they will have thought about it by then, because you started asking them at 5. They will have thought about it, and they'll be able to intelligibly, we're just gonna go with that, intelligibly answer.
You're making up words.
Yeah, it's okay. Nothing new under the sun, right? So intelligibly answer that question, because you posed it to them not in the first time. Like, well, what do you need from me? How can I be a better father? And their answers will get more mature as they mature.
Yeah.
And that opens up their emotional intelligence for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, they will definitely, and like you said, if you do it more on a consistent basis, they will definitely have different answers each and every time, because they're changing as human beings. And I would also say this: talking in the car makes it less awkward. You know, especially if like if they're on the side of you or behind you, it doesn't matter. But while driving, it's one of the best ways to have conversations with your kids, because when you're looking at them face to face, like a lot of times kids think like, am I in trouble?
Right. It could be intimidating.
Yeah. And so having conversations in the car, and just make a note like of, hey, just want to ask you, just make note of whatever they answer, like make note of that, I should say, so that you don't forget and that you could fulfill whatever they need from you. But pose it as like, hey, just kind of like just having conversation in the car. Like,
Right. Yeah, man, I've had some of the best conversations have been in the car.
Road trips.
Yeah. And even just going to the store or going to wherever we going to, and then we end up just talking in the car. You know. Yeah, that's good. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, car talks are probably the best talks for father and son in my experience.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. I think we've covered how to avoid failing as a father, but I'm just going to go over the actionable steps. Remember, prioritize communication, set realistic expectations, maintain consistency, educate yourself, and take time for self-reflection. And we added the other one, which was journal, write down what you feel like, how you want a father to be, and ask your kids what they need from you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's our show for today. Fathers Handling Business. I'm Dwyan.
Donté.
And we will check y'all out next time. Thanks for hollering at us. Thanks for stopping in and listening to your cousins. All right. Peace out.
Peace.